Present. Open argument.
We have a quorum. Let's go ahead and do our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. All right, you guys had a chance to look at the agenda. Any changes or amendments to the agenda?
Motion approved.
In a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Agenda is approved. All right, at this time, it's time for public input. If we have anybody that wants to come to the podium and ask questions or give comment. Minutes. Okay. Move on to the approval of the minutes. You guys have had a chance to look at it. There was a name spelling error. I'll have to pull it up. It's here. It's not Alex Skiles. It's probably Albert. I think that was the only thing I saw as far as a error in the minutes. Any other comments on minutes?
Make a motion approved with that one change.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. With that one correction, Albert Skiles instead of Alex. All those in favor? Take care. Move on to the financial report. So as of September 30th, 2024, the general fund had $700,392.81. Street fund had $229,107.43. And the Police Act 98 fund was $9,648.13. And we have $1,028,178.75 in CDs. It moved the two CDs over to Bank Fayetteville at 4.58% for 1 year.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Mhm. So next we have the police department report.
So for the month of September, we had 219 calls, 50 charges, 46 moving violations, 1 DWI, 127 warning citations, 3 warrants, 4 criminal citations, 1 PCS BDP, and 6 incident reports. At the bottom of that, you'll also notice that we did a comparison between the last, for 3 months, with 22, 23.
So Chief, that's all contact, all.
That's calls for service, that's everything, yeah, that's everything we get called to. Of course, you see in 2022, we were at what, 640, I believe?
660.
660. Then in 2023, went to 743, and that was with the addition of 2 officers, and now we're down to 7. So it's a good trend that it goes down. That's what we like to see. So, any question?
Thank you. All right, next we'll go to the street report, and I'll just pull it up and go over it with everybody. So the city park, they placed we placed 96 loads of dirty base, which is the chat that goes on top of the road for the South Park entrance. And there were sleeves that were installed under the South Park entrance road to be able to run water and electric in the future. Weeding and mowing of the fields and park. On the roads, they brush hogged this month Fire Tower, West Sharp Drive, Wyman Road, Clark Street, Nimmo Lane, Oxford Bend, Wilson Lane, Haverton, and Blue Springs. Removed a tree from south entrance of the park. And then also maintenance removed the large logs that were sitting out here right in front of the community building. and there's some pictures they took of that. And then sprayed to control some of the grass around city streets and intersections, and then finished clearing weeds from around the trees on the fire tower. If you notice out here behind, they cleaned that up really nicely. And then future projects will be to install the rest of the street signs that we've ordered. We are wanting to do it now, but the ground is so dry, we can't drive the posts. So as soon as we get rain, you'll see street signs going up. And then remove the fallen dead trees in the park entrance. So this was some of the equipment we used on this south entrance of the park to get that road put in. And this was the big stump and tree they removed directly across from us here on Park Street here. So I didn't realize how big it was till they pulled all that out of there. It was really overgrown. Yeah. And I'm glad they've done that because Crosslink Construction is going to be starting with their construction on the water line, and they come right through that area. So that's good that it's cleaned up. And Dave and Ivan are both at training right now, and they're getting their chemical capture for the animal control. So they'll have that certification after this week. So, all right, next up is the Goshen. Any questions about infrastructure, facility management, street department? No. The next up is the Goshen Fire District report. I can just read it off. So for September, looks like the total number of incidents were 10 different types. I imagine the medical assist is still the highest at 25. So, any questions about it? We can move on to the Planning Commission report. Lacey?
So last week we had the Nile subdivision come up on plat review. It was approved. And then we went over the other zoning regulation changes. Some of those changes include grammatical punctuation errors, adding public land district to our zoning districts, allowing for accessory dwelling units as used by right in zones, and removing size stipulations on dwellings to avoid discrimination and adhere to state laws. More or less means that we can't tell people that their structures have to be 24 by 24, and we can't have a minimum square footage on our manufactured homes of 1150. So that has to be taken out of our zoning ordinances as well, which also means we can't tell people they can't have tiny homes in Goshen. And then we removed the driveway regulations from the zoning and subdivision regulations and created our own regulations, like it's its own entity. So we'll have our zoning regulations, subdivision regulations, and driveway regulations.
Still no change in 2 acres, right?
No.
No. Any questions?
Lacey, I think it was maybe 2 meetings ago, those 4 lots that are being developed off of,
Highway 45?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did I dream or did I hear that the city will not going to water that?
Correct. So there's one tap existing, so he'll be able to build on one of those lots. But the other 3, unless he decides to dig wells or set up for the water and have those built there with like no water at all, which is really hard. Yeah, there won't be any building there.
The city won't do that until it's the water pressure.
It's not necessarily a city issue, it's the Fayetteville Water Department issue. So Fayetteville Water has a moratorium until the summer of 2026.
And that could be lifted if the project gets completed before then. It's just, I think that
Yeah, I don't even think
they
they're
don't know the
taking
exact time
applications.
frame.
They're not taking applications until February of 26.
But it could be sooner. So it depends on when Crosslink gets done with the construction. So, and the nice thing is they've at least set up and they are starting on the construction of it now. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to building. JD's not here. It's his birthday today, so let's wish him a happy birthday. But on the building inspection report, I don't think there were any failures. I think they were all passed. Yep. Any questions about it? Okay. Move on to Parks and Recreation report. Is Daniel here? No? I can report. We had good news this week. We got approved to go to the second phase to present in Little Rock on the 24th of October for the state park grant. So if we get this grant, we get to use that property for the offset of the expenditure. So that is a great thing for us to try to get. So Lacey and I have been working on that presentation. It's an 8-minute presentation in Little Rock. Danielle and Lacey and I will be going. If anybody else is interested in going, let us know. We'd be happy to have anybody else that wants to be there present with us on the 24th at 11 in Little Rock. I don't know how many we're competing against.
I have no idea. That
So-
was not told.
If it's anything like the last times that they had, you know, the Ken went down and Josh went down and whatnot, I mean, it was like in and out.
Yeah.
A few minutes.
Yeah, 8 minutes, that's what we get. So, and then we won't hear back until after, they've heard all of them and then they deliberate. So, but it's a good thing that we made it to this phase, and so at least we'll get to go down and present. The award, what's the total number? 270,000.
7.
Oh, 207,000 is the total award. So, any other questions? The only other part news really is that the south entrance is underway as far as all of the gravel's in, the parking lot is done. The new entrance is finished with the exception of the asphalt on the entrance to that side. And Crossland is coordinating with Tomlinson because Crossland is setting up to do all the water line and they're moving equipment in and out, and they don't want to be doing that when they do the asphalt on that first 40 feet of the driveway. And so after that, then that will end up being asphalted and that'll be the new entrance. And I haven't heard from Tomlinson, but they were supposed to start on the north entrance within the next week or two, is what they had said. So hopefully the north entrance will close, the south entrance is ready, and we'll be able to go ahead and open that up, and then people can park on that side and use the park.
Let me ask you regarding paving the apron, okay? And they're gonna obviously end up paving the entrance on the north side
They will.
as well. At that time, can we comply with our own regulations and do these two and the one over there? We have no apron on any of it.
Oh, you're talking about City Hall, the community building? If you guys would like the community building parking lot asphalted, I can look into doing that. We've not,
What I'm saying is the aprons. We don't have any aprons on any of those three entrances.
I don't think,
those three, which three are we talking?
Yeah,
I don't think that they are required to have paving because they're not at an angle down towards, is that correctly?
No, they all have. We have a requirement in our driveway ordinance that requires 15 feet, even if there's no slope. If there's if it goes up, then we require 25. But yeah, we can do that. I can get that in the budget. We can do that in the spring. I don't have it in the budget for this year. They're gonna dig this up.
maybe when they are paving that and they're paving the entrance at the south, okay, that at the same time,
We don't have it in the budget for this year, John. If you want to approve a new budget, I could probably get it done. But again, they're going to be digging this entire area up over the next year. So I wouldn't do that. And the same reason I didn't replace the culvert on Kyle Circle is because that culvert is caved in, but they're going to be bringing the water line through there. And I've actually talked to them about replacing the culvert when they dig that through. So I can budget it for next year.
I'm just mentioning it so we don't lose sight of it, because I've mentioned it before.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay?
Absolutely.
We need to be in compliance with our own rules.
I totally agree. All right. Any other questions about park? Okay, so we'll move on to Arbor Board. You pull that up.
As a member of the Arbor Board, it's been my good fortune to meet and work with so many dedicated, hardworking fellow nature lovers. the Arbor Board and all those volunteers behind the scenes have made this a very fun and educational experience. When I met Larry and Ken for the first time, their enthusiasm about the park and all that was going on over there was contagious, and I wanted to be a part of it, so I signed on to plant some trees. We planted trees and so much more. It's been a very wonderful thing to experience. Mary's a very gifted educator. She has such a great knowledge about trees, which trees host which butterflies, about all the local wildflowers, the history of the Mill Branch Park, the history of the Arbor Society. And it has been a great experience and a very important learning experience for me. We have had hikes with Jennifer Ogle, identifying trees, walking through the park, on an Audubon bird watching adventure, and learning from the Beaver Lake folks. There is so much to appreciate in our own backyard. Learning to nurture and celebrate trees is what the Arbor Board has shared with me, and I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity. I want the council to know that the ordinance should not be changed until the Arbor Board meets as a group and we have time to review and discuss those changes. Thank you for your time.
Is a member of the board or president, Betty Nichols, is in Africa, and we're widely traveled village. I want to speak tonight about the items. You have a copy of the minutes, and I'll read them off. The mayor met with the Arbor Board and a lot of changes that he wanted to make that would set meeting times, deal with the assignment of people on the board and other things. Again, as Barbara reiterated, we would like to wait before the city hears on this motion until we as an Arbor Board can talk through some of that. The other things I would like to mention is particularly about changing the name of the Arbor Board. And this is a decision, of course, by the mayor and the Arbor Board itself, and the city council. But I wanted to remind you that Tree City USA is part of the Arbor Day Foundation. And Arbor Day began in Nebraska in 1872. And they planted 1 million trees that year. Arbor Day in the United States, actually, statewide, began in 1970 with the founding of the EPA, the Clean Water Act, and the Clean Air Act, because the growing awareness that trees were essential to all of that. Trees hold the earth, trees pollinate, yada, yada. So that needed to be part of our thinking as a nation. So when you're thinking about Arbor, I wanted to make sure that you're thinking that we respond to the Arbor Day Foundation. We host the Arbor Day, and Arbor means another thing for our community. It also means shelter. And this is a part of our community history that I think some of you may not know. In Arkansas in the 1800s, it was part of the Great Revival time, and when farmers were clearing their fields and doing stuff, they put up brush arbors to bring people together. And Goshen was one of the 6 Methodist camps in Arkansas. And they put up brush arbors, which was basically kind of a frame, and they put the things where they cleared the fields, and they would come together and have revival, have camp, celebrate the fact that they got their crops in. I grew up in central Arkansas near the Salem campground, which is one of the 6. Our campground was destroyed by a tornado in 1880, along with the Methodist Church. But we still have this connection in the person who settled in Mill Branch Park. Moses Dutton was a Methodist itinerant preacher, in addition to being a Civil War veteran and a Mexican War veteran. And he's the one who actually led to the name of Goshen, because it used to be something like Collegeville.
College Station.
College Station. Okay, thank you. And so we have a lot of connection to this idea of an arbor and a place where people gather at the end of doing their crops and celebrating and getting their families together all across Arkansas. One of the camps, and I don't know if this is one of the 6 district camps, but there was one on the Buffalo, which they called the ditch at that time. It was one of the banks of the Arkansas River in North Little Rock. But I interviewed women from, who were really old at the time, and I was much younger, who had been at the Salem camp meetings, and they were talking about all the farmers were getting all the kids and stuff together, and they were having the boys and the girls, and she said, you know, the meeting's so late as the word saved. So, you know, it was a country tradition for these people to get together, and Goshen is part of that tradition of a farming community, a faithful community, and a community of gathering and getting together. I just wanted to share that with you, and you have the report, and we will be meeting October 24th and looking at all of Russell's recommendations about it. And hopefully will let us get back to him about where we land on some of those recommendations. In the 7 years that Arbor Board has been in working, I posit that I know I've been to as many meetings as most councilmen, because I go also to the parks meeting and some of the planning, and Betty and other members of the Arbor Board show up to this community. We did the cleanup of a lot of the hazardous waste and the manure and everything that had been fermenting in the old chicken houses and the old ranch. And we planted all kinds of trees, and we can account for over $50,000 worth of volunteer value time. So I think because you see me, I asked Barbara to come, but you know, we have a huge list of people who volunteer and care about this community and come out to clean, to plant, to spread mulch, to clear invasives. And I just wanted to pay tribute to a lot of the people that work and do that aren't me. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So we'll move on to the old business. And got a request by Riverside State homeowners, I think they need to do that. And
Good job. You must double with that.
I'm glad I didn't show that.
Good. You want to introduce yourself, Linda Wine?
I'm Maggie McCorkindale, and I'm running for the state association. And I know that Dan has done a lot of lead work to get us to this point, so I want to defer to him, but also just to know that I'm here representing the board.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So there's been, I think, 3 actions that have taken place since we met last on this topic. One is that I sent an email, as I said I would, that contained direct links to some language that we talked about last time. And I also, the only open action from that item, I think, is I had made a request for consideration to an amendment to the current language in the ordinance. I didn't get any feedback on the email, so I'm hoping to get some tonight on that consideration. I think it's in the interest overall of what we're trying to do here. The second action was that, in line with our agreed upon plan, Riverside Estates had a board meeting, an HOA meeting, sorry, and the quorums were met, and we held a vote for the issue at hand, and the result was overwhelmingly positive. I think you have a percentage, right?
Yes, so 41 lots were represented, and which met the requirement, and 92% voted in favor of having the speeding enforced by the Goshen Police.
So those are the statistics. I call it overwhelming. You can call it what you want. But, that was the second action. The third action was, we're here tonight, to present that information to you and to continue down the agreed upon path. I feel like we met the requirement that you posed to us. So the next action item, in my opinion, is to proceed as we have discussed. So that's the summary of where we are on this whole business. Sean, you were there. If you have anything you want to add as both the resident or the council person, not that you need my permission, but I think you have a unique kind of
No.
standing in the deal.
Just that, I think we as a council said 51%, far exceeded the 51%, so.
It may,
I think the importance here is the independence of each residence or each HOA. And I think that's the main thing I want to stress here is that in our conversations, it's not to put a requirement or anything upon anybody else, but it's an independent residence, HOA that would be, affected by that.
So in reviewing the minutes and your emails, Dan, thank you for that. Right, it looks like the judge was pretty lawyerly, said yes, maybe, but not gonna say no. Yeah, basically try it and wait till we get the challenge, my interpretation.
Basically what she told me. So basically, yeah, go for it. To get a challenge, we'll figure it out, I think.
And then operationally, and you would do it on regular duty, you'd be contracted as.
Not be regular duty. But you're already doing some control through there, so.
Yeah, but you're not gonna sit down there with radar, wait for somebody to come in.
Oh, we may.
Huh? Waste of time.
That's what we do out on the street.
it's ridiculous to suggest that safety for the public is a waste of time. As a council person, I'm shocked to hear you say that. I mean, there's no other gain in this but personal safety. I'm shocked to hear you say that, characterize it that way.
That's your opinion,
Sure is, yeah, sure is. And I'd like for everybody to hear that I said it.
and you can.
Everybody heard you say
You can have
that.
your opinion.
Appreciate that.
Mainly, we would like, I work from home and I see the Goshen Police Department come past down my street pretty much every day, sometimes a couple of times a day. And we would just like for them to be able to issue citations for people who are clearly exceeding the speed limit. And the chief did a wonderful job at presenting, their typical protocol, and our neighborhood has voiced that they're okay.
I think Dan's done a tremendous work on this. From the traps, supported from day one. To your point, Sean, I think it's independent for each HOA if they choose to do so or they choose not to do so. So I'll apply this more. So
I think at this time, we would need to vote in the council.
no, that's we need to. I didn't know this was coming up. We need to have an ordinance.
We do have an
That
ordinance.
No, that authorizes specifically the enforcement in the subdivision before we can get anything to prosecute. And I wanted to mention, because in here it talks about posted speed limit, but the only thing that we've talked about, the chief and I, is enforcing our careless driving.
Correct.
Because this is not a speed limit that the city has established, and not that you could write tickets on. But that would be the next step, is to have an ordinance that you all would pass that would then allow them to start enforcing that careless driving.
I think we should get more buy-in from this judge.
You're getting
I already had
everything you can.
Judge, he said, fine with it. I also talked to the prosecutor, who said that he would prosecute.
And then if a defendant challenges it, then it's court.
That's cool.
She'll determine that at that point, she's not gonna opine on it.
I will say one question that arose, and I'm not sure from what was that, would there be any need, and I did talk with Chief about this, but seeing how this it goes through, this would be the first, would there be anything needed on the sign stating that, maintained by the city of Goshen or something to that factor on the speed limit sign? In other words, enforced by or anything like that. So
Just be another deterrent.
topic for
Yeah.
conversation if that's needed.
So what is the posted speed limit?
20.
So that's your point, Brian, it's not your full code, so that'd be, what's the point of Carroll Drive?
25. Well, careless driving is anything over the speed limit. I mean, technically.
So that is,
So the careless driving is the basic catch up. It covers literally what the driving, the speeds.
This was the basis for my recommendation to add that specific language, because this is a unique scenario. It's not speed limit. This is careless driving within residential. So in my opinion, if you consider adding that caveat, and it would say something along the lines of speeding in excess of posted speed limits. So it's clear and it's concise, but it's not, it doesn't involve state posted speed, approved speeds, anything like that. It's very clear, posted speed limits. And since it's careless stop, it's an opinion. Yes or no, did you exceed neighborhood speed limits? So I think that the path is very solid. What happens in court is totally, TBD. We'll see how that goes. But if we get that far and we get shot down, then we've done all we can do. And I don't know what else we would do with that.
That's on that sign. Would you say posted speed limit by POA?
No.
I guess to the ordinance question, do we want to try to have the ordinance so that if we have other POAs in the future that decide to sign into the same sort of thing, that we can go ahead and, are we just gonna amend that ordinance to include them? Or-
But you can talk about that too. I think it needs to be a.
we need to have each stage view.
Yeah, for every side.
So my question is, does Sean have to abstain since he lives there on this particular one?
Yes. We'll have the ordinance till next month anyway.
Enough bodies here to vote. So I support writing the ordinance. I think Dan's comments about the language make sense.
Well, and I think, I didn't get your email, Dan, but are you referring to amending our current city ordinance?
If you have that was the case, but if you think that this is a better approach, then maybe it's a better approach.
I kind of defer to the chief more than anything on what's enforced.
I think having a separate one per subdivision would be.
Then you're talking about rewriting a completely new ordinance. And then you would.
Allowing the police to enforce our current careless driving ordinance.
Basically.
Within the
including it there.
confines of that neighborhood.
Right.
Based on the information from the POA that you have a majority vote that are interested in having that.
I think that maybe the POA regulation should be changed as well to allow for the Goshen, and that way those POA regulations could be attached to the ordinance. Saying that the POA also agrees.
Well, the POA is a POA's business.
Yeah.
Y'all had your meeting, just have to vote. It should be in their minutes to be done.
And the unique thing about the path that we've chosen with the ordinance is that, as we discussed already, if he saw a violation of the ordinance as it stands today, outside of our neighborhood, he comes in. And he could care less if it's written in bylaws or anything like that. So I think that, going the route of the ordinance is, it's crossing a lot of Ts and dotting a lot of Is all in one.
The only second piece of that was brought up in that particular meeting was if the subdivision decided that they no longer wanted that.
Right.
There's another process.
I read that in the letter, asking that to be, makes sense.
You didn't see the letter that was,
I did not.
okay, maybe I
I
didn't.
saw the letter from the president.
Right. Okay, I think it's moved probably at this point. You saw the final letter, so that's all. I think what you're trying to say is that ordinance should contain language on the way out if
Way in, way out.
way in, way out. Yeah, agree.
Good. We'll bring it back.
Thank you, guys.
And just so you know, it was the intention tonight that if we had proceeded basically, and I'm not, let's just say we had decided, if it were as easy as saying we agree with the ordinance, go. We were going to say, or we were going to say publicly that we want to temporarily suspend our portion of the green light because we have some administrative stuff to do on our side. So in the meantime, I don't know if I could say I'm not asking for your word or anything, but we don't need to waste a month waiting for the action you have to take. We should be confident that this is the agreed upon plan and we'll.
Sure, yeah, we'll have an ordinance to vote, for the council to vote on next month.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so we can.
Will be voted on.
It'll be voted on.
But it doesn't, does it pass or doesn't it pass? We don't know that until the vote is done.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Appreciate y'all's time as always. You bet. Yes, sir.
Is there a procedure in place to do that? They have meeting and vote overwhelmingly to get out of it? Does that be the process?
The currently defined language will be a majority board director vote to get out. And a majority lot owners vote to get in.
It'll be the same procedure about getting in and about getting out.
Not the same. To get out, the board of directors alone would have a majority vote. So the 5 elected representatives of the neighborhood could vote to get out. And the reason for that is because we wanted the freedom to, in case something went really wrong, it's very difficult to get
Right.
the quorum in and of itself. It's kind of amazing that we got what we got. This one, we've never had those kind of numbers. And it's very difficult to even get a quorum. So in case that it's decided we want to get out, we want to be able to get out. If that makes sense.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so, moving on to ordinance 52 discussion, Lacey, if you want to come.
Ordinance 52, we don't know how really to enforce this. We have gotten no stipulations back from council on how tall you want the grass to be, or how dirty you want somebody's front yard to be, or what's considered one man's trash and another man's treasures. So I don't know what to do with this. I've given a couple of violations and gotten some kickback. One particular property on, was that Jay, right behind us, right, Jay? There was a lady there that was like, hey, this isn't trash, and to me, it looked very much like a trash bag, so I don't know what to do. I got no feedback from council whatsoever.
I was out of town for work last month, so I missed the conversation. Obviously, it's subjective. They're in applying every single thing that's not slightly sanitary.
I mean, a clear example is across the street, we have a home, and it's been this way for years, that we've needed to authorize a violation notice, and Lacey's done so, and we're following up with that homeowner, but there continues to be piles of limbs, piles of trash.
You're talking about on Fire Tower.
But also on J, there's also, on there, I know exactly which one she's talking about, where there's visible trash in front of the house. So at what point do you want us to start saying you can't have that? It's not easy because, there are lots of properties that aren't as well maintained as others, and I'm not trying to go and say that every single property has to be pristine. This isn't
I
like.
just need a bar. What's the bar? If people aren't meeting the bar, what do I do? How do you want this enforced? And if you don't want it enforced, then I suggest repealing it.
Have you had a chance to ask other cities how that's defined?
Well, so I called Elkins, and Elkins doesn't enforce that.
I can tell you Springdale enforces it strictly. So if you want to pull Springdale's and see what they have written, it's strictly enforced. I know Fayetteville enforces theirs pretty strictly as well. So.
But there's also been different situations, like Fayetteville. 8 inches, 10 inches. If it's over 10 inches, you can get an ordinance violation. We have 2-acre minimums in Goshen. Sometimes that's a lot of property to take care of. How much of that property, needs to be moved? Do they have to mow all of it? some of it.
Maybe pull what that others are doing, and very loud and clear. Mowing to 10 inches is not reasonable, but it's unsightly, it's piles of traffic, piles of limbs. I mean, maybe it's subjective on you as the inspector. We give you that authority. If they want to challenge it, they challenge it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that giving Lacey that authority and letting her take pictures and just really
All of them have
documenting
pictures.
what it looks like, I think anything that she has given violation notices of would definitely stand up in a court. So, and in my opinion, that's where we need to be focusing our attention as to, is this gonna stand up if it goes before a judge? And everything you've done would, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not rude. I don't try to be rude to people or tell them that they can't have their property. But there are some properties that you kind of look at the property and it's not maintained. But this issue came up because this one particular person, on J, called me and gave me an earful about what she thought was her treasure. And I'm telling you, they were trash bags. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Could we have a thing where they take a picture and you get a warning that this needs to be cleaned up in X amount of days or?
Yes.
No, there's 3 warnings. There's 3 warnings. Yeah, absolutely. And the first one, like I said, especially with all of the changes that we're having in Goshen and finally enforcing our ordinances, huge transition. Like the first violation will be sent out and then 60 days later, the second one will be sent out. And then like 60 days, sometimes 90 days later, a third one will be sent out. And then it's okay if this isn't fixed. And there's also stipulations. The stipulations change. So the first one is, hey, notice this isn't right. And then the second one is like, hey, you have 30 days to get back a hold of me. And I give them extra time. And then the third one is like, okay, now you have 10 days to get back a hold of me or I'm coming to your property.
What about junk cars?
Not allowed to have them.
Yeah.
Cannot be inside at all.
Good.
Appreciate it, Birch.
So I wanted to bring it up again. Talked about 127 this time. And ordinance 127, as it was written, it only had 3 arbor board members and it staggered the membership 1, 2, and 3 years. It didn't really assign anything after that. And so we haven't really had any specifics as to how many people are on the board, how many, members there are, and how long their terms have been. So that was the reason that we had this meeting to talk about the ordinance. And the ordinance that you guys will have to be able to look at, this edited arbor board ordinance. This was after the meeting. And at the meeting, we had discussed that we would bring this to the council just to read for one time and then bring it back to the arbor board for them to make corrections, adjustments, suggestions, and then we bring it back to the council again. So this is really just a first presentation of a new ordinance for arbor board. And again, the name isn't set. It's just that this is one of the recommendations that came from that meeting. So we'll go back to the arbor board meeting on the 24th for them to discuss as well. Does that make sense? Okay. And I don't even know, Brian, it's up to you if we even want to do a first reading or if we want to just discuss it.
Discuss it and then I guess let the arbor board meet and talk about it.
Okay. So at the arbor board meeting, one of the things that, I wouldn't say arbor board meeting, the meeting I had with the arbor board to discuss ordinance 127 and the non-compliance with ordinance 127 and not really having an organized body was that we need to have this organized in a way that we have records of who's on the board, what their terms are, and how the decisions are being made. So like all of the other commissions or boards, we needed to have a set number of people on the board, how they're appointed, who's going to be chairperson. I asked Mary if she'd be willing to serve as the president over the next year to get the arbor board more organized and keep them going in the same direction so that everybody's aware of what has been going on over the last 7 years and educate them on trees and what we're looking for the city. So she agreed to do that. Betty will stay on until December. Mary will take over in December. I have a list of the people that were at the meeting. So at the meeting, the people that were there, Mary Smith, Andrew Eden, Cheryl Nemo, John Erwin, Perry Ann Sparks. Kim was not there, but I assume, still going to do Arbor Board and continue on. And then we also looked at putting another person on the Arbor Board in January. So Mike Nemo was at the meeting, Ken was at the meeting, and then Nathan Snipes was at the meeting, but has decided he's going to move over to the Parks Commission. So from that, there were a lot of discussions about whether the name should stay Arbor Board or whether it should be, Tree Board, Tree and City Beautification Board. We'll let them take that back and go over that again and come up with a decision together as to what they want that name to be. I don't have a preference. It doesn't really matter to me.
My personal opinion would be that it's been known as the Arbor Board since day one. Everybody knows what the Arbor Board is.
I would disagree with that, because when you ask the public what is Arbor Board, sometimes people don't know.
No, but I mean, the terminology Arbor Board, okay, is.
I'm going to compliment you on being a well-educated man and knowing what arbor means, but not everybody does. And I don't mean to be, crass, but that is true. Okay.
If I say Arbor Board or somebody else says Arbor Board, most intelligent people know what it is. Okay, across the entire United States. The forestry plan or community, whatever, doesn't ring. It's not tied to anything. Arbor Board is tied to a lot, as Mary said in her presentation.
I agree with Mary in her assessment and presentation. I don't disagree with that. I do also know that not everybody knows what an arbor board is. And I'm not trying to make a decision. I'm saying let's put it back to them and let them decide. But
I said most intelligent people.
all right. So other than that, really the thing I really wanted was organization of the board, to know how many members, when they're going to meet. They need to meet quarterly, because that was what they decided when they set up the Arbor Board initially, and that there's some minutes of those meetings so that we can actually know what's been done throughout the year. The other thing that I would like is for us to have them look at the budget. So there is $2 per capita. We've put $5,000 in the budget for Arbor Board. That covers all of the citizens of Goshen at $2 per capita. And to come up with a budget plan to present to the council and have that carried out throughout the year. So that's really the only significant things I wanted to accomplish from the meeting that we had. And I think the ordinance, the revisions of the ordinance, I'll let them go through and make adjustments and then bring that back to council next month if you guys are good with that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to let them chew on it some. And I guess the one question I had, it looked like there was some disagreement between invasive to Fayetteville and not specifically non-invasive to Fayetteville. What should be planted or not planted?
There's two minds on that. Russell will not support any kind of ban on anything other than natives. I'm going to say it's my personal opinion, and I'm not going to represent the Arbor Board here, is that we're kind of in a special situation on the actual Bench Park, because we had a $12,000 grant with Arkansas Forestry to develop a tree trail and to focus on native plants, and we're working with the University of Arkansas, herbarium and dendrology and all that. I don't think it upsets people in Goshen. They can plant on their land anything they want. We just want to model native plants that can work in their landscape and try to share with them that, one, they're more likely to survive if planted properly, and two, they support native pollinators and all, which everyone knows we're losing so much of our wild spaces and we try to, make that point. But it's not something I'm related to from the board. Russell, 6, Southern Magnolias there, and I'm looking at 6 Southern Magnolias.
And my concern was that I don't feel like it's appropriate to put into an ordinance that we can only plant native plants to Northwest Arkansas. Not that I don't think we should encourage it. I definitely think we should encourage it and educate people about the benefits and why we want to do that. But I don't think that it's beneficial for us to put that into an ordinance to limit us, as there's no other city in the entire region that has that.
Thank you.
There would be, one of the lenses that I look at this property through is the historic lens. When that property was settled, they planted 2 apple orchards. There was, the Arkansas native black apples and some of the other, varieties that we developed in Arkansas historically would be great to plant there. There wouldn't exactly be a native, but it'd be a great historical feature. So I can see areas where being flexible makes sense. The scientific thing that most things that you buy in Lowe's and the big box stores are mostly from Japan and China because they don't have bugs that eat them. And it's pretty much within 20 years they're becoming invasive. So that's a concern by a lot of people because they not only become invasive, they attract invasive species to live in them. Like in water, like Japanese and Chinese hollies are bringing in English sparrows, which are really invasive.
So with this ordinance, apply to the park, or would be a once for anything plant, wherever?
Well, I was advocating that we should apply it to the park. And the Arbor Board doesn't have any legal, whatever. We just advise you that it'd be a good idea. You can do whatever you want.
If it was an ordinance, it would be-
Yes. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is the ordinance regarding the master plan, which I think that.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in on that. I'm looking at my notes from last meeting and it's a little unclear on the requested revisions. I'd like y'all to take that and let me visit with Max. I know he was the one that was pushing this through and then we can put it back on the agenda next week.
So we'll
Take
table
a
that.
motion to the table. The ordinance,
So we have a motion for table. All in favor? We'll move on to the Goshen with the title contracts.
If y'all recall, you got an email from me shortly after our last meeting, and I got a phone call, or had a phone call with TJ Curtis Construction. Looking for a follow-up, and he and I discussed some of the issues. When Curtis Construction submitted their bid schedule, the total amount of that was $38,050, I believe. And then when we had the contract drafted, which I think was prepared or filled out by Craft and Bowl, possibly, but it left out one itemized item for traffic control, so it was $2,500 short. So the bid schedule was one number, the contract inadvertently left out a $2,500 item. So we wanted me to point that out and see if there would be some consideration on that, be able to get that paid. Additionally, we had installed some bollards down here.
We're on the contract.
Okay, and that's, he explained to me on the phone that they were not. And that was an additional cost, $3,500. So I told him I would ask y'all to address it again this month, see what you wanted to do, and then I would report back to him. In my opinion, is they had a contract, they had someone that received a contract, they did not provide a cost fee, that's something they can argue with each other.
Right. They signed the contract.
I don't want the city's being held hostage for the work they didn't do. My opinion.
I agree. I'm just the messenger here. You're going to say.
Good.
Sounds like the consensus is telling you, Dan and Fern where we work.
That's their error that they didn't include the, again, bid schedule didn't come out, that's an error on their part, that the contract didn't match the bid schedule.
I guess they want that $2,500, $2,500. We need to go back and tell, they didn't put it in.
I mean, the contract's.
Yes, I can understand that viewpoint, yeah.
And I wasn't even paying that either.
It was part of the design.
You give in to one thing, they're gonna come out.
That's what I need. You advise differently, right?
Where the amount they're asking for is almost $11,000. Not necessarily, I don't advise anything differently right now. I mean, if they do pursue and move forward with a lawsuit, well, we can have a conversation at that time. Fair enough. I think right now it makes sense to stay where you are. Getting the motion, but
Just to clarify, the contract they had was with Kraft.
was with us.
Well, with through Crafton as well to oversee the project, but with the city.
We were contracted to pay them.
The contract that was signed went off the 2005.
Correct.
From what was originally bid.
Was written.
But that was not true. The lease draft.
But let's also consider that the contract also included a box culvert that never got installed, and that they never came to us for any change. And they were paying them for the entire amount of work that was to be done with an additional box culvert installation.
Do we have the amount for that box culvert?
It was $11,000 for that one that they didn't install. Now, there were things that they ran into that cost more, and they had overages. And I understand that that was part of it. When I talked to Luke about it, our engineer with Crafton and Toll, he did not believe they would go over budget because of that other item that they weren't installing. And they still did, but they never came to us for any kind of change notification or adjustment to the budget. Until after the project was completed, and then they wanted to get paid for it, so. Yeah.
No, I've got what I need.
All right, so we'll move on to the new business. We didn't adjust the agenda, but I'd like to move item D up to the top, so Bruce Mike can get out of here and go home if he wants to. If you guys are okay with that? Sure. So, item D is the resolution authorizing the 2025 Highlands Gravel Classic. And Bruce and his company were the ones that sponsored that this last year, and this last year. And I thought it was a great event, that we had a huge turnout, and we'd like to do it again. So, Bruce, do you want to come?
Yeah.
Give a talk.
I've never opposed to bragging about an event. Thank you so much. My name is Bruce. I'm with Wall Sports Productions. We gave a recap on this year's event. It was late April. This was the third year of holding this event. It's a gravel cycling event. It's the only one in the United States that qualifies for the International World Championships. We had 360, let me just go right to the numbers real quick. We had 363 participants from 39 states and 6 countries, So very impressive. I will tell you, I thought the event would be much bigger, quite frankly. There's a couple of nuanced reasons for that, but there's almost as many people from Texas, Colorado, and Oklahoma combined, more than Arkansas. So the growth potential is really large. I love the fact that we have 39 states. I mean, literally Vermont, California, Florida, Washington State, and a lot of different areas. The comments from people coming to our community are always, they're very surprised. And they, sometimes come kicking and screaming and they leave kicking and screaming. We know that term pretty well around here. And so, your hospitality is one of the key reasons for, a lot of the comments. They can travel anywhere. These people literally will travel all over the world to do these type of events and travel with their friends and family. They enjoy the hospitality. They enjoy the community. Obviously, the event was very difficult, but that's the reason they're coming here, right? They're not coming here for just a leisurely ride. They're coming here for an experience. And your community gave them an experience. And I've told Russell and all the leadership that people have options and they'll come back because of you and the community and all the uniqueness we have in Northwest Arkansas. We all know what we have, but I think sharing this with the rest of the world is a great thing. And I just applaud everyone's efforts here. You were great and made it a success. So thank you. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Good question.
Michael, I volunteered at the event and talked to a lot of the writers, and I thought it was fabulous. I was surprised that the news and coverage of it in the Gazette or whatever, that interviews with some of the people all over the world, that we didn't have better press coverage.
Yeah.
Why was that such a hole?
Oh, if I can figure that one out, we do 18 events a year. We just got Big Dam Bridge 100 in Little Rock. It was 3,500 riders, and sometimes you can't get the paper to cover it. So that's, we do a lot of press releases. We do a lot of information. We try to put things out there. I just never know. If you solve that for me, I would love to know, but they know about it, whether they're covering it or not. It's a different story. Axios does, because one of the local writers is.
Well, I want to see next year, maybe you can't fix the Arkansas Democratic Senate, but if we could have people designated from your team to interview some of these great writers. Like I talked to the woman who was 85 years old, who paddled 50 miles and saw all these people. I said, I just wish everyone from Goshen could have met some of these people. And maybe we profile them. If we're going to have this event, let's own it and promote it here somehow.
Absolutely.
I don't hear what you're saying. The Gazette. Who gets the paper anymore? I know that a lot of people get the Sunday paper, the iPad, or, to read the rest of the week. But it's more so if you can get the TV stations, the news for the TV stations to come out and put it on the news. It's gonna get to a lot more people.
I think that's a good point.
Than the newspaper.
I just think it was an excellent event. It showcased our community, all the food that was prepared and everything. It would have been nice if more people got to see what really happened, because it was extraordinary that the staff and the people who worked on it pulled it off.
So you guys have a resolution before you to decide, if we want to continue to host the Highlands Gravel Classic in 2025. We look to go ahead and get approval so that his team can start moving forward with plans. We can start moving forward at the city with the plans of getting this coordinated.
Bruce, the April 26th is the date you want.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I support the resolution.
Second.
So we
Title.
Title only.
So we have a motion to read in title only for the resolution. So all those in favor?
Aye. A resolution allowing city property and facilities to be used for the Highlands Gravel Classic. Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve. Any other public comment before we vote?
The city's commitment.
Parking lot, 2 toilets.
Four toilets.
4 5.
Where the city is not sponsoring the meal, but we are looking to do sponsorship from somewhere outside the city for the meal. And we are potentially going to have a city event for public relations as the Spring Fest associated with this. but that's not part of this resolution.
Resolution's a parking lot and 2 porta potties.
That's correct. All right, any other public comment before we vote? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, resolution is approved. Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, we can move on now to item A, which is the ordinance setting a tax levy. And there are two different ordinances because we had a tax of 3 mills before this year. And the reason we couldn't keep it at 3 mills was because they reassessed all the values of the properties and it would have been greater than 10%. So we had to go to 2.9 mills. So the question is, do we want to keep it at 2.9 or do we want to go back to 3 mills? So that's the council's decision, but you guys will need to vote on that. You'll need to decide whether you want to stay at 2.9 or go to 3 mills, which we were at before.
3 mills carries 0.01.
It's not significant, but yes, we were forced to go to 2.9, but it's up to you guys to decide 2.9 or 3. Those are the two ordinances before you.
However, the increased values of property have increased significantly. Therefore, I think.
You think maybe we should wait and see?
My personal opinion is we have an annexation on the ballot. They know that our millage is 2.9. It's not that significant of an increase in revenue for the city. I mean, we're only talking maybe $30,000 in an entire year at the most. So, yeah. That is correct. So my suggestion is we stay at 2.9 for this coming year. And you are right, property value did go up significantly and it did change, so.
2.9 is fine.
Okay. Do you want a motion to read that ordinance? Yep, so this is the 2.9.
I think you're trying to adopt this tonight.
Yep.
So you need to
Emergency.
Suspend the rules.
and waive the second and third reading.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules, read in title only and only read one time or
Waive the second.
maybe second, third readings. The ordinance levying a tax on the real estate property, personal property, at 2.9 mils.
Second.
Separate, yeah. We have a motion and a second. All right, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. An ordinance levying a tax on the real and personal property within the city of Goshen, Arkansas for the year 2024, fixing the rate thereof at 2.9 mils and certifying the same to the county clerk of Washington County, Arkansas, and to declare an emergency and for other purposes. That would be, assuming it passes, that would be effective January 1.
Correct.
Vote to give it position.
Second.
We have a motion to approve in a second. Roll call vote.
Public input.
Public input, sorry.
I got a question. Why does this not have to go to a ballot issue and question?
We can go to 5 mils before it goes to ballot. Up to 5 mils. Anything over that has to go on a ballot.
That's the state.
Yeah, that's what the state requirement is. And we're actually one of the lower cities in the area.
Can I ask a question? Is there supposed to be, it says 1 is free, 2 is free, but there's no good trade?
Oh, yeah.
I cut out some of the signature things.
The vote results.
It's the roll call.
Oh,
Fred
okay.
Wright,
Yes.
John Valencourt,
Yes.
Ollie Anderson. Yes. John Hagan.
Vote on the emergency clause. You want to.
I'll make a motion to pass the emergency clause.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second for the emergency clause. Roll call vote.
Fred Wright,
Yes.
John.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So the ordinance passes with the emergency clause. 2.9 mils.
That'll help the budget for next year. But not having it at all.
All right, so we can move on to the preliminary 2025 budget and general fund. And Jerry, do you want to go over the budget? Do you want Sean, to Sean?
We're gonna do it together.
Okay.
Okay. You want me to my, okay. You can probably go there. Have you got that time to look at this, budget at all?
Look at the whole thing.
Okay, overall, if you look at the bottom line, just kind of give you a little bit of a summary. Overall, it's less than like a 1% change. And if you look at the total number, total revenue is actually a decrease 2024. And that's because of the moratorium. We just don't know yet how that's gonna come in. So we've just
There's
been.
the moratorium on water because
No.
we won't have as many buildings.
Yeah.
5 years, though, doesn't affect anything.
Well, and it doesn't prohibit anybody from putting a well in on their property to supply their household with water.
It doesn't, but we currently, I think there were 20, how many water taps do we have approved for next year?
So it actually,
Which is 12, 11, yeah.
And then like there's, if the annexation goes through, I think there's a few throughout there. I just don't foresee the income on permits to be as high as it has been
I'm not
this year and
arguing that.
last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's be seen, you know?
It is.
And if we go over, then we go over, but we'd rather, be a little conservative about everything.
So just to be clear, that's what I saw, that's why I asked the question earlier. It has been passed through City of Fayetteville City Council, moratorium on that. Water is resolved for the state.
Until they have this new line, and it's not just the new line, they're putting in a new line and they're putting in a new valve system that'll allow the water to flow through, so that's part of it. And so,
They also. Doing that. They have to put a sister line, if you will. Okay, so that they can shut one off to repair it and still use the other one.
I don't know all those details.
Wow.
I was not privy to those, but I know that we will not be able to, we are concerned about overestimating our profits from permits, given the fact that there won't be as many water taps available.
So that's why you're seeing the numbers lower. This will probably get revised once we get a little bit more clarity, but we just want to be realistic about it. But overall, we still are not having to trim back on any of our expenses, because believe it or not, it's just from where we are with the budget for 24 that was approved. It's less than 1% change overall with those same expenses. And this is with some increases in salaries, administrative salaries, police salaries have been increased, just to kind of bring them up to speed a little bit with competitive salaries and other surrounding cities, and to retain the police officers we have, and anticipating that if the annexation goes through, we're gonna have a higher salaries anyway. So we're trying to plan ahead for this, get ahead of it. So even with the reduced amount and the increase, we're still like 1% difference with everything we've got, so.
I've gone through this, the 1% is incredible on this amount of money. The only question I have, I think we had a line item in there for first construction, that's what we just talked about. $10,000 or so, I think it's on the street.
Yes, that's
So
it.
it's
I'm sorry, it's under street fund, but I think we put that in there just in case. They did come after. It's a placeholder, yeah. And if it goes away, it goes away, we add it to the other. But I wanted to point out also under parks, one of the things that Jerry was very good to point out is that we don't want to spend things on the parks budget that's a capital expenditure. So we want to put that under capital expenditure, even though the park budget may look like it's significantly less. It's because it's still coming in under capital. Yeah, and it's also, when we look at how much we're spending in parks, the other thing that we haven't really looked at is that all of the matching funds that we use for any of the grants that we get, those are also expenditures that are park related. So it may not come out of the budget, but it's definitely a park expenditure. So does that help you guys to see like why that number changed pretty drastically?
And the other bottom line item I want you to pay attention to was you see at the end of year-to-date, where we are year-to-date 24, it's showing like we're under 37. That's gonna narrow, probably down to hopefully a neutral. We just top loaded some of our expenses early on.
Yep.
And so that's going to catch itself, so that will not be a negative 37. We don't anticipate much of a carryover from this budget going into 2025. So that should be pretty much eaten up by the time the end of the year, because it's the final things that have not come through yet, and plus there are gonna be some accruals we'll probably have at the end of the year, things that didn't get finished, the money has already been allocated for.
And that money's still in the account, it just hasn't been spent.
Yeah, it just hasn't been spent, but it is included in the budget, so you don't have to worry about it showing up again.
Jerry, we capture the depreciation.
We, on the depreciation side, it is not reflected in this amended budget yet. Okay, it is not recaptured at this point.
But it will be.
It will be, yes. Because it's just
Pass through.
yeah, it's a non-cash deduction that does show up, but we get the valuation on the asset side. So we do get the valuation on our balance sheet side, so that'll show up on the balance sheet side, not on the P&L.
And do we have any pending liabilities?
The only liabilities we have right now is the $63,000 grant match for the RDOT, which we haven't even proceeded with the RDOT grant yet. And that'll be a carryover, but that's the only other liability that we currently have.
The only other one is contingency with what's going on down here. What you guys just talked about.
Curtis, yeah.
Potential legal issue about
yeah.
paying that issue. That's out there. We didn't feel the need to put that in as a contingency at this point, because that's based on what you guys decide to handle it, and then we'll follow your lead if we need to accrue some money for that. And that's gonna be requested in December.
I thought there was something in here. And it had a note on it about if we owed.
It's there, it's just a note.
It's budget.
It's just a
It's in
note.
the street fund.
Right.
That's,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You have put hard no money aside for that. It's just a note right now.
okay.
Yeah, so if you see under 45 Goshen Tuttle, this number, 10,967, that's the
Yeah.
amount they're asking for. We just put it in there as a placeholder in case we have to pay it for some reason. Not that we anticipate we are, but just to be able to have it there if we need it.
So anyway, those are the top line. So says anything else you guys have questions about?
Let me ask you, under capital expenditures.
Okay.
Okay, the last item down, engine for Goshen number 3,
Correct.
20.
So that was Jesse's vehicle, he feels like is in great condition, but the engine has so many hours on the engine itself, not necessarily miles, but hours, that engine is not likely to last if we continue to run it. So the thought was that it was cheaper to replace the engine than it was to buy a new unit. So that was the reason we put that in.
Price.
Engine for Goshen number 3.
No,
Engine.
So I guess,
Station 1, 2, 3.
I guess related to the budget, but not specifically. Great job.
Thank you.
I know there's been a lot of back and forth on annexation.
yeah, if the annexation goes through.
We will redo this.
And we will need to come up with the amount of money out of our general fund to pay for a new census. And I think, Kashana, did you get a number? Yeah. But I will say that new census number is important. And I say it's important not just for the annexation area, but because Goshen has increased in size. We had 1,400 electorates when I was voted in. That was what was at the county. Now it's 1,700 electorates in Goshen,
Not counting that.
not counting the annexation. So we've already had a significant increase just in the last 2 years. So just to keep that in mind, when we do a new census, all of the numbers on our turnback funds are related to the number that's on the census. So if that census goes up, and we anticipate it will, we'll be closer to 4,000 instead of 2,100. So our turnback funds would likely almost double.
So there's 1,900.
You think there's
No, we think there's probably around 1,200. Then you increase the number of people that are already in Goshen, they're not counted, because we're only getting paid on 2,100.
And that's everyone in Goshen can vote and annexation.
That is correct.
That's correct.
So if you guys want the annexation, you should encourage your neighbors to vote yes on the annexation.
There's one more meeting. For the public input on that. Actually, it was brought up last time at the meeting why there weren't any council members there. So, we as a committee have all been there. Russell has been there, Lacey has been there. And, we walked out with a little few pounds less, pretty much each meeting.
I just slim down.
Would be helpful, actually, it's like if the council voted this in, it would be nice to have them represent.
Yeah.
That we actually, in agreement with.
The 23rd of October at 5:30 here at the community building.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday. Yeah.
I was out of town.
Yeah.
And I would say I presented last night to the Bridlewood subdivision POA. And, there was some pushback, but I would say overall it was well accepted. And I think that the POA members that were there, I think some of them changed their mind based on what they heard. And I think that there are some definite benefits for the people in the annexation area. I understand where they're coming from. The biggest thing I've heard from the people in the annexation area is that they felt like that they were just blindsided, that there was no communication to them before this happened. Part of that is the process. And, annexations are notoriously difficult, I didn't realize, but very difficult for the area that's being annexed, because oftentimes those people don't necessarily want to be annexed. And I don't know if, any amount of preparation is going to get people more, wanting to be annexed. But they felt like they were blindsided that all of a sudden they just got a notice that they were going to be annexed and it was on the ballot. So.
And this will move us to a first-class city, which will require greater responsibility on our financial part too.
So do you need a motion to approve the preliminary budget, or is this just information?
It's just for information. We would like for you guys to give us feedback that we can make changes if needed. We would like to, again, try to approve a budget by December so that we can go ahead and move forward with a plan for January. Now, if the annexation goes through, we will work on the budget that's approved in December until we get those numbers back from the census and we start seeing turnback funds come in.
So if that does happen, how quickly do it?
We call for it immediately, so on November 6th, we would call for the census. And I don't know the timeframe for when it finishes.
That's exactly right.
Right.
We would have, if the annexation goes through, we will allocate money for that in December and make sure we have that available to you and have that set aside.
But it's probably something that would come out of our, general fund as an extraordinary expense, not something that's annualized budget item.
Plus probably some type of contingency funds set aside for unexpected expenses that we just don't know yet. This is a new territory for us as a city.
So have you heard, I've heard very little. I got one phone call from a family that lives in the proposed annexation areas, Philippines, and talked with them. Have we heard from those that are in Goshen now what their thoughts are?
I haven't. The ones we've talked to are the people that come to meetings and are involved in, planning commission and parks commission and city council. But as far as outside.
16 months out.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. 226. 226, that was the ordinance that allowed us to do the annexation.
Not good for Goshen.
Yes, the big one.
Not good for you. I was like, this is not good for Goshen. I think that was something that was put in there with We don't want it, though. We're gonna make sure you don't want it to.
Yeah.
So do we have any repercussions for that? I wouldn't think so. So they want, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Not good for Goshen, because we're gonna be trouble.
I mean, honestly, when we started talking about the annexation, I mean, one of the questions is this a liability? Is it worth it or is it not worth it? It is a liability for the city. We have 10.5 more miles of streets to cover. You know, we're gonna have to patrol that area that we, you know, don't currently patrol with our officers. It is a larger area. I think that you do have to weigh the benefits and the additional revenue with the liability that the city will incur over the course of the next, you know, 10 to 20 years, because it is going to be a liability in some ways. But I do think that I think it's good for us, and I do think it's good for them. I think that, you know, what they don't realize, a lot of them, is they don't realize that the county has 0 zoning regulations. So if someone comes in and buys the farm next to this beautiful, gorgeous, huge estate, and they want to build, you know, 100 Roush Coleman homes on 100 acres, and if the Quorum Court approves it and it perks, they can do it. There's nothing to prevent that.
water, they do.
Well,
It is got a lot of water.
Yeah.
Within just a block of their house.
Yeah.
And, you know, really call.
And with all the red dirt we have here, you could get a farm out there and just sell red dirt for years. I mean, you know, yeah, or a turkey farm, or chicken farm, or, you know, hog farm. It's like, there's really, if it passes through the Quorum Court, then it would be approved. I mean, there's nothing to say that, you know, it would pass, but there's nothing to say it won't. So Lauren can tell you.
It wouldn't even have to go to Quorum Court. There's no zoning in Washington County. I'm on Washington County Planning Board too. It's used by right. Everything is agricultural or single family. Anything else takes a conditional use. So it could be a farm without anybody approved.
Yeah.
It does help from the planning aspect. I'm speaking as a planning commissioner, not on behalf of the planning board. It does help from the planning aspect, and it's in that land to give us better control in our long-term plan.
That's the point, I think, once, you know, we gotta think strategically.
And I think that was why we chose that area, because it is most like what Goshen is now. We felt like that's the logical, you know, next step for, if we're gonna grow, that would be the area to go towards.
I think one
If we
community,
didn't take it, then Fayetteville or Springdale is gonna take it.
I don't think Fayetteville's gonna take it, but Springdale might take that portion after 612 comes in. But again, I don't wanna make presumptions about what any other city's gonna do, other than, you know, there's the possibility of that. So for the budget, we would really appreciate if you have comments or you have suggestions about things in the budget, or you have questions, please email Kashana. She can get back to you quicker than any of us, and she can bring that to us as well. And we will meet again probably at the end of, the end of October,
For the next meeting.
before the next meeting, at the end of October, first part of November, and make some revisions based on any comments that you guys have or things that we foresee that need to be changed.
Lacey, we did add a new employee that's gonna be added to this budget also. These individuals are, you know, Lacey is taking on 3 or 4 hats. And if the annexation goes through, it's just gonna be more. So we will be probably looking at adding another staff person. That has not been built in yet, but annexation go through, that will be built in. Another police officer, that will be built in, it's not at this point. So I just need you guys to be, like Burke said, forward strategically thinking. This doesn't come without costs.
And we'll have to look at those once we get the numbers, we'll be able to better determine where that's gonna lie. But we are gonna add Abby as a full-time employee, whether the annexation goes through or not. We have to have someone there that's gonna help.
Built into these numbers.
Yeah, she is. But we have to have somebody that's gonna be there to oversee and do these grants and to help with all the administrative stuff that these 2 ladies can't do by themselves. I mean, Lacey's getting pulled in 10 different directions and Kashana's getting pulled about 5. So a lot of work has really gone through this last 2 years, you know, through City Hall. So I appreciate the level of work that's being accomplished is quite amazing. Thank you, guys.
If I could second that as well, just again, speaking as a planning commissioner, I've served on planning commission for 14 years on and off in this community, and current mayor and staff is doing a phenomenal job in the planning area. We're attacking a lot of things that need to be cleaned up. I think we've got a good direction, a lot of work's been on it. They're doing a phenomenal job if they need help. So I do concur with that.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Question.
Yeah.
Because I think I heard it someplace, but if the annexation goes, if the annexation goes through, okay, and working on getting our own postal code, so all of the homes become,
72735. Yep.
okay, now, with that and with the annexation going through,
Mhm.
the part that becomes part of Goshen in the annexation, what's over by Sassafras and over that way, well, they go to Springdale School.
Yeah, and so the school districts are zoned through the legislature. Now, I would petition the legislature to add them to the Fayetteville School District because it's not very much. And whether they do that or not, I have no idea. But I would go a little, start petitioning our state representatives to say that we believe that's beneficial for those and for the people of the area to all be in the school district. It would be a significant, it's a very small area.
Asking the question because we're talking.
The communication area. And I mean, I've told them I can't guarantee anything, but I will go look at the petition for those people to be in the district. So we'll see what happens, but if the annexation goes through, I have no idea what to do.
That would be.
It doesn't change the school district. No, that's done legislatively. Yeah. We've already looked into that and I've already answered the question.
Anything else for us?
Thank you.
All right, we have one last thing to the Commissioner. So Chuck came back and did a great job helping with the master plan. And as much as he loved the park and wanted to be there, he said, I'm 80 years old and I don't want to drive. And so with it getting dark early, he said, I feel like it's step back again. He said, I did the work I promised to do. Get you guys ready for this grant, but I'm gonna step in. And Nathan Sykes, who's one of our officers, lives across the street, loves parks, was going to be on the Arbor Board, but decided that he would rather be on the Parks Commission and has stepped up and said he wants to be fulfilling Chuck's last couple of months and then leading him into the next term. So we have a resolution for that. And that's here. So if you guys are good with Nathan being on the Parks Commission, then you guys can, make a decision to read title on that.
Resolution number 2024-19. And title only.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to read in title only. All those in favor?
A resolution appointing Nathaniel Snipes to the Parks and Recreation Commission of the City of Goshen, Arkansas.
Any public comment?
Long as that affect his work.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a question I had. I mean, he's been on his own time.
Yeah. We gotta make a motion.
Make a motion that we approve resolution number 21-19.
We have a motion and a second. Any other public comment? No. Okay. All those in favor? All right. So carried. All right. That brings us to the end. If there's any other reports or comments by Alderman,
Just so you guys. Lacey has actually passed her 120-hour class. class, so she is officially considered an auxiliary officer. Okay.
Calling you out for the day.
I was gonna ask that question earlier about the citation.
We'll be doing FTO and go through all of the practicals and, defensive tactics really kicked my butt. But yes, so I've learned it all, but I did it for code enforcement and just to kind of further with the city of Goshen to be able to do that efficiently.
Thank you. We're very proud of her for doing that. Any other public input? No, second, all in favor? Aye.
So we're speaking essentially like.
Yes, thank you.